And the reason it's not everything it's cracked up to be is that it's actually impossible to exercise your right to vote. Think about it. If you can't vote as a black man, as a Latino, then there's no way to change the government and the people that represent you. You're always going to be represented by those racist white people that don't want to give you a fair shake. So yeah, while we have a huge victory in the Civil Rights Act of 1964, and while you're going to get a major victory with the 24th Amendment, which says you can't have poll taxes, and while you get even more victories for civil rights with Robert Kennedy trying to help African Americans register to vote by having the Civil Rights Division of the Justice Department file lawsuits throughout the South, that pace of change is too slow. People are still not able to vote. Violence is still going on throughout the South when black Americans try to vote. Because racism doesn't just go away because we passed the Civil Rights Act of 1964. All those racists don't wake up the day after the Civil Rights Act of 64 is passed and go, you're right, all that time I spent with the Klan, all that time lynching and burning and bombing and fighting, yeah, shouldn't have done that. I'm just going to go straight now, and I'm going to love all the black people in the South. That's not how that works. They're still going to be racist and fight back, and they do. With that pace of change being too slow for leaders of the civil rights movement, Dr. King and the other leaders agree to protest in Selma, Alabama. And the purpose of that march in Selma, Alabama, which is going to go from Selma to Birmingham, or Selma to Montgomery, the purpose of that march is to campaign for voting rights. They're going to get out there and say, we want the right to vote, guaranteed. You cannot interfere with us. What you're going to see in response is dozens and dozens and dozens of white Americans deputized to become police in order to go after the protesters. Now, here's the protesters. You can see them, right, marching along. They're not bothering anybody. There they are, just marching along peacefully, waving American flags at staff, right? They're there just doing their thing. And here they are coming down a bridge outside Selma. This is the Edmund Pettus Bridge, and you can see one of these deputies right here in the foreground, right beneath my head. 3,000 deputies ready to go to war. And what happens is that live on television, more than 3,000 protesters are attacked with dozens of white deputies on horses with weapons, beating them. 70 of them put into the hospitalized, 70 more injured. Live on TV. People around the world are seeing images like this. Live on TV. Chaos, bedlam. All because people just want the right to vote. All because you're black. This brutal attack on television by law enforcement against peaceful protesters becomes known as Bloody Sunday. And it makes LBJ furious. He calls for Congress to get together, and he proposes the Voting Rights Act of 1965, and it passes. And it restricts bans on voting, like literacy tests. And in 4 months, you're going to see 250,000 African Americans register to vote. And over the course of the next several decades, we go from 0 African Americans in Congress to 44 by 2011. You know, the passage of the Voting Rights Act in 65 and the Civil Rights Act in 64, both by the 1960s, is crucial, because until the mid-1960s, the civil rights movement focused on political rights. From here on out, it's going to focus on economic rights. But before this, it was political rights, and now they've got what they wanted. And we'll continue this in class together.